All right, so we're going to start. We're going to get going here. We got a long session, and we do have the Admiral on board, which is a great thing. He just came out of the Pentagon. He'll talk about all that. First and foremost, welcome to our monthly ESG. Our attendance is doing remarkably well over the last few months, so I appreciate everybody's attention and due diligence, and obviously freeing up some of this valuable bandwidth that you all have out there in your respective jobs. So really appreciate that. I'm going to keep my remarks to just where they're at because the Admiral's got a full agenda. And then after that, we will probably go to Brian to talk a little bit about some community manager topics, if in fact we have the time, and then maybe get to an update on one of our community charter projects. If in fact we do not get to any of those because of the remarks and so on from the Admiral, that's great. We can roll that into the next month's monthly. So it's always good to have a lot of good information and stuff to convey. So barring no issues, Admiral, over to you, sir, and welcome to the ESG.
Thanks, Sharon. Hi, Dean. Good morning, good afternoon. I want to take a couple minutes with you and just share what I've been doing the last couple of weeks, most especially. And I'll ask if Tony Jarmillio or Steve want to chime in as well out of Southwest, and then Brett and Dave Bondrak at West. Probably not because we haven't been there yet. But I was at a meeting this morning at the Pentagon, and it was with the Secretary of the Navy and the Vice Chief. And it was about sustainment, Navy sustainment. So in the room also was ASN RDA, Secretary Gertz was in there, Admiral Lesher from N8, clearly Air Boss and Admiral Peters were on the line, and DCA had a rep in there, Russ Blau, as well. Michelle Skubik, who was Supply Chief, and Admiral Gehagen as champions this project. And the long and short of it is this: a couple weeks back we started on an adventure to basically redo the Navy sustainment system. So if you hear the word or the acronym NSS or Navy Sustainment System, so you know what this is about. We're fundamentally, and it's going to be bigger than naval aviation. It's going to also include the shipyards and stretch out to NAVSEA. But for right now, let's just concentrate on naval aviation, how we sustain our aircraft, and then most especially down and in within the FRCs. So what happened was we've Deputy Secretary of Defense, Secretary Shanahan, had made 2 visits to our FRCs. He had been to Mid-Atlantic and he had been out to FRC West. And as he saw how we were doing production there, he saw our F-18 line and some intermediate work we were doing at Oceana. And the same thing, he saw our CCPN F-18 line at Lemoore and a little bit on the machine shop there in the intermediate side at FRC West. And it was after he saw Oceana that he had thought, now remember his background is 30 years on the Boeing side working production. So he's very well versed in aircraft production and production lines and a little bit of the MRO world. Well, in the MRO world, one of his close partners is a gentleman named Brian Hirschman, who happens to be an advisor for a consulting group. And so he basically said, hey, let me have Brian Hirschman come in and take a look at the way you guys are doing business. So Brian Hirschman made the trip out to Lemoore, met with Brett, Dave, and the team out there. Tony was up there as well. And then most recently, I'll fast forward a little bit to the last couple of weeks where Brian has spent a lot of time with the Boston Consulting Group is the name of the company, that team out at FRC Southwest. And the idea is this: it's to get speed and velocity in our depot lines, on our aircraft lines and our component lines. And there's a lot to get after, clearly. And as we talked about on the team is, you got to eat this elephant one bite at a time here. So what we decided to look at was F-18 EFs. And for those of you that have been watching closely on the EF side, is the Air Boss has put out task orders and the whole plan is to get the EF to 341 mission-capable aircraft. We have been flatlined and hovering around 250 to 260 mission-capable aircraft for the last 5+ years right now, and lots of reasons. I won't go into those right now, but the idea is the pressure's on us to get the EF, the Super Hornet count, up to 341 and show a projection line and all of the levers that we're going to pull to get there. One of them is better production at the FRCs, and not so much going after the aircraft first. I think, there were some things that they saw in a CCPM line there at FRC West. They had also been down to FRC Southeast to see the F-18 and the T-6 line down there. So they see what we do. They see some of the goodness that CCPM does. They're very familiar with that, and they see some areas that we can improve to bring in industry best practices. And we're going to start with, and we have started with, components. And we believe that the biggest bang for the buck is us getting better on the reparables, both at the depot level and at the intermediate level. So what we've moved out on is embarked on a journey with BCG. I just came back from, it's a 30-day sprint that we've been doing, set up in Southwest, where we started in the hydraulic shop, and the 5 or so parts, critical parts that support the Super Hornet are done in that shop there. And what we basically did was we basically 5S'd is what we did. We took the as-is there in Tony and Steve's shop, and then they came in and basically have, working with the team at Southwest, have just looked at the flow and basically re-wickered how that shop looks today, and basically brought in an industry best practice, and we started implementing it right there. That shop, by that component area for the actuators, is right smack dab in the center of the components building for Southwest. So it just made good sense to start there. We briefed out today the leadership, or it was a brief led by the Boston Consulting Group team on what we had done, and some of the go-dos that we're looking for support from. Now, what's interesting about this initiative is it's got high level visibility. The Secretary of the Navy and the Deputy Secretary of Defense are very aware of what we're doing, and are very aware of what we're doing there at the shop floor in FRC Southwest. And to Tony and Steve's credit, the team has been welcomed this Boston Consulting Group team with open arms. They've opened their books, showed them the processes there, and I, as the commander of the Fleet Readiness Center, see this as a tremendous opportunity for us to get better and get better faster. We have been doing a lot of good things in the FRCs. A lot of you have seen that. You've seen some of the briefs that we've done to try to get speed and drive down the turnaround time on our aircraft lines and get more predictable there. We turned our focus then to ISRs, and I'm proud of the work that the team has done there. And the third leg of the milking stool being components, which is it's a big, as components go, so too will production. And on the EF side, interestingly enough, unlike the A through D, which started out as an outer reporting problem, we're knocking out. We delivered 93 EFs out of our production line this year to a planned 83. So we actually did more than what the original plan as we started 18 had us to do. So leaving SLM and what's coming up with Boeing's help off to the side, we're getting after components, and that's the great thing here is bringing in industry best practices. And I'll say it this way: I and the FRC COs and FRC leaderships really now have an industry counterpart to copy and learn from quickly. And this individual, this MRO, his name is Brian Hirschman. He runs the third largest MRO in North America. They have won all kind of awards. If you read his bio, I'm not going to build him up because he doesn't need that, but incredibly well-versed, worked his way up, so near and dear to a lot of our hearts, is worked his way up from an A&P mechanic all the way to running a large MRO right now. And he's been doing this for 30 years and really knows what right looks like. And that's not to say we don't. but he hasn't had to live in a system that for the last 10 years had, we all know the story of how we got to where we are with underfunding of enabler accounts, hiring freezes, and all the barriers and constraints that exist today. What I'm excited about is the opportunities down and in the FRCs to get us better, and then equally as excited as the up and out. What has frustrated us, and this is what I was telling the Southwest team, is we know where we've been frustrated with, let's just say engineering support. We know where we've been frustrated with supply support. We know how years ago the EF was an O to OEM concept, and there was very little level 2 capability that was stood up. So I don't want to go back and relive history. It's important to understand, to know how we got to where we are today, but it allows us now to flush out, the organizations that exist today in a stovepipe manner: NAVSUP, WSS, DLA, COMFRC. The fact that you have NAVAIR there that's competency aligned, but the PEOs are aligned to ASN RDA. And when you look to say, hey, who's the head on the horse who owns sustainment in the Navy, we can't come up with a clear answer. We're going to have a clear answer here before long. And if you even ask the question of Brian Hirschman, in industry, any major airline would know who the person is who runs that fleet, 737, who's responsible for making sure they make their flights every day. We don't necessarily have that. One could say the closest thing we have is the program manager. Okay, so in this case, that's D.W. Kinley. D.W. he doesn't control parts and where they go once they get to the flight line. He doesn't control the inventory when they come in and out of the depot there. That's a 421 piece there with Grumpy Masika and Jeff Chown there at Airland. So you look at how we're set up and the visibility that everybody has or doesn't have into the whole system that will enable us to get to 341. Significant changes have to happen, and that's what I think this Navy sustainment system is going to allow us to do. It's going to be briefed. It was briefed today at the SecNav level and the Vice Chief level, and in 2 more weeks we're going to come back and I say we because I get it that it's BCG leading this, but it's our story too because it's being done. This was every bit as Southwest story and an FRC story as it was BCG story today. So I just wanted to share with you when you see this or you hear the term Navy sustainment system and what we're doing to totally revamp this. And I'll tell you, the SecNav has said, he's on record, as is DepSecDef, we're ready to break furniture. We're ready to replumb financial lines and that if there's barriers that exist between NAVSUP WSS's Big Navy Working Capital Fund, DLA's Big Working Capital Fund, the FRC's Working Capital Fund, we're looking to change policies, procedure, law to help you guys get to where you need to get to. So I just wanted to share that with you, let you know what we're doing, what we're after. So if you hear that, and if that leads me to it, so we haven't had a training event here in a while. We typically do that in August. We wouldn't have had all this in play in August anyway, but possibly we're looking at January for all of us to get together there. And I would be, I'd look forward to the opportunity to work with the FRC CEOs to pull together some information to share with you all where we're at, what we've done so far, and where we're going. So there's a great opportunity, as I see this, down and in to better the FRCs and the up and out to really get after those barriers and constraints. Production is a team sport, and we say that all the time, but I don't think people realize because it's always the FRCs can't produce. But very rarely does somebody have the time, the bandwidth, or the understanding to know, well, what are the reasons why? And a lot of times it's just the way things were set up. It's all those pieces, right? There's an engineering piece, there's a 6.0 piece, there's a reliability piece. So there's hey, how was the maintenance plans set up before in the program office? All those things have to be aligned, and I think that's what this is going to help flush out. let me stop there with that. Tony, can you fill in a little bit more with the team there? What you've done? What are you and the team excited about? And what we've done in the first 2 weeks and where we're going in the next 2?
Yes, sir. Happy to. So out here in our 93301, which is our hydraulic shop, if you could see the before and after pictures, it's just like an airspeed event with theory of constraints. And the highlight is everything is exposed now. I was prepping for the XCOM this morning, but Steve got to go over and hear the production meeting. And if you think about the days where we could go into PC and everything is visible on the bids boards, where is everything at? So they laid out everything. Anything in red is a constraint, whether it be an E&E or a material delay or engineering delay. And so it's a buffer status red, if you will. Attack that red. Another exciting thing is the visibility and the flow in the work center area is they moved all the kitting out of the central kitting and moved it closer to the PC desk, aligned it. And I will tell you, just the other day with that DLA and having that stuff all out in front of everybody, we were able to cross-kit 5 more rudder servos. And we've learned a lot about the actual reports, the shortage reports, and there's some training and other things we need to do within PC to improve how they're printing out the reports. And I will tell you, they've uncovered stuff that folks thought was on order that's not even on order, which is embarrassing for me to say in front of a bunch of maintenance professionals. But if you think about the magnitude of parts coming through into the thousands, and one missed part or several missed parts that you thought were on order and not on order cripples us as we're trying to build kits. So having that stuff in front of you and visible, and they put up monitors outside. So eventually, as you're walking through the shop, you'll be looking to see if we're green. If we're green, you can just keep walking. If it's red, you need to stop and ask, what are we doing about this? We're also doing, if you will, some Toyota-type setups where we're setting up lights to show where something is red, and then again back to the combine lines, and if something is green, and the pickup, and then all this stuff being put out on the floor by, in some cage in the corner of a building, creates a sense of urgency. And that's just within the PC kitting shop area where the production control center is. And then you go into the clean room where we do the hydraulics. We took everything out of the hallways and put everything closer to the artisans, cleaned up all the benches so that you could see everything in there along with all your PV items, your tech data. And then we're using the outside area to line up parts that need to be either disassembled or assembled by those, so the workers can come in the morning and see the magnitude of work that they have in front of them. I don't know if do you have anything to add, Steve? Did I capture?
Oh, very well. I think the thing I took away this morning was I was having some pretty enjoyable flashbacks to my young enlisted days when I would walk into maintenance control in the morning for maintenance meeting. And the coordination and the teaming between all entities, engineering, PC, DLA, everybody is there, and instantly a problem is brought up and instantly it's solved. So all of the in-your-face visibility is really, I think the most positive thing I see coming out of it. And the energy of the artisans and the technicians and the supporting personnel on the floor is really moving this fast. So I see it as a huge positive moment for us.
Yes, Tony, thanks for that. And I'll kind of wrap up this conversation, and we'll stop for some questions if anybody has any. It has been our dream for a while and part of our vision to get to an operations center. And what we're going to do here, we're going to start with F-18, and we're going to call it an AOG, Aircraft on Ground Cell. Now, we got to go ahead to do that from the Vice Chief and SecNav today. We still need to figure out. So, if Jeff Chown's on, don't be alarmed by this, Jeff. We still have to figure out how we're going to do this. I still think it's something that we do that's run out of Norfolk and run out of the TICOM there. But I don't see how we can ever self-actualize as a naval aviation sustainment community if we don't have real-time visibility. By real-time, it doesn't mean everybody's sitting in Philadelphia, Richmond, Norfolk, Pax River, where everybody has an empowered rep monitoring the fleet in some kind of cell together. I mean, if you look at, I've been to enough commercial organizations now, FedEx, Delta, American, and all the world-class Southwest. We're going to go to Brian Hirschman's MRO to see how he manages that. Real-world empowered people in there to look whenever an aircraft goes down, how do we quickly get after that, get parts to them, get engineering support there, and have real-time visibility. And that would mean that there's going to be empowered people from SUP and DLA all sitting in there. So this is a big change to how we've done this before. It just is. AMSRRs calling out to the ships and getting updates from real-time updates from CAGMO and AMDO out there. This is where we have to go, and really to me, to have now I'll say the top cover to just go do. I'm really excited about for us to hit 341. That's a tall order, and I say that because I really think why are we flatlined at 245 and 260? Because that's what the system's been designed to. When you set up the FRTP, if you look and you count how many aircraft we're supposed to have up on any given day, because there are squadrons in the basic and the maintenance phase, that's 250 is about the number of aircraft every day that the system that basically it acts as a governor on the system there. And we've had talks before. Is you've got to pull that tiered readiness off in order for us to achieve 341, or for us to be able to achieve the 80% that now has been put out by SecDef as our opportunity and our target. So, discussions I've had too, to hit an 80% target, if you just take a 12-plane squadron, you would expect that 2 to 3 aircraft at any given time are down for a calendar or phase inspection. To do them properly, that requires several days of those to be down many times. And as we try to drive down turnaround times at the depot, components is a contributor, but the number one contributor to lengthy turnaround times is material condition of the aircraft. And many times we can tie that back to MRC decks from calendar and phase inspections of things that weren't done. So my concern in maintenance execution is that the squadrons will cut an 84-day MAF or a phase C or D MAF only to sign it off the next day to get it on the flight schedule. And where we'll pay for that is when the aircraft comes into its depot event. So what I really think the system needs to do is we really pressurize the 4.0 and the 6.0 team to look at the calendar inspections. Why do we do what we do every 84-day? Why do we do what we do in every phase? That's where executability-wise, to hit 80% is going to be hard for us to do. We have to limit the amount of time that the aircraft is down in those types of inspections, but that only comes through good reliability data and setting up the maintenance system such that allows us to not have aircraft in those, whether it's lengthening the intervals or something like that. But that's really what we need to go after here, and that's what I think as we look at this and pick up every rock, this is going to allow us to get there and get there a lot quicker. I don't know what a lot quicker looks like. We're on a 30-day, we're done 2 weeks of a 30-day sprint out there at Southwest with the BCG team. So we'll see after 30 days, and we brief out in the next 2 weeks the leadership. Where do we go from here? There was never a predetermined outcome of where this would go. It was going to be, hey, as we find stuff, let's report on it and let's figure this out collectively and together. So let me stop there because that's about it. I think in time. So JR, I think you have the slides, and perhaps we can send that and the video out that we have to all the folks on the phone here today, to the ESG team here, so folks can see that, understand it, and then if we have questions for the next time we get together, you can understand and read a little bit more about what we did there at the actuator shop there at Southwest, and then where we're going. So let me stop there and see if there's any questions.
Admiral, this is Jeff Chandler. Real quick question for you on the support center or AOG or that concept. I know, and I'm sure you're aware, we've met with Greg Skinner and there in Pax River, and he's come down here to Norfolk, sat with me and JB Terrio and Grumpy Masika, and we've gone so far as to identify potential space for this to exist in our building here at TICOM. And it's definitely a thing that there's been a lot of favorable response from Admiral Kelly on establishing here again. But I wanted to make sure that what was before the BCG group effort came online, what was the support center, the NASC, Naval Aviation Support Center, is kind of, am I understanding it correctly, to kind of evolve into this AOG, that the new sort of terminology, sort of concept, or are they existing in parallel? Are they, does this cancel one, or does it supersede that? I don't know.
That is a great question, Jeff. I'm glad you asked it. One is, just please know we're going to be down there. Brian Hirschman and I will be down there to visit you and Grumpy and Admiral Kelly next Thursday, where we're going to go over to this. The answer to your question is, I don't know, because the AOG concept is so immature right now. I've at least I thought I hit send this morning, but I want to pull together the NASC team, Greg Skinner and Rich Baumhold, and the team up here to make sure we understand that we tie all this together. And then there's also, log cell that we've done, or that Nav Stuff has done up in Philadelphia. How does all this tie in and play together? And like I said before, there's going to be some BCG efforts where it's just some easy, low-hanging fruit, quick wins, and that's really what we've done at Southwest thus far. Got it. Things to get after that have immediate impact, bang for the buck. Then there's going to be things where we're going to say, hey, here's some things that we've done, or some seeds that we've planted, where we maybe just do a little bit of stick and rudder changes based on industry best practices. This is one, Jeff. I don't know the answer to that yet. I think there's going to be where we merge the two and figure that out as we go forward. And really what I want to have happen is I want for Brian Hirschman and the team to look at what we had, our idea with the NASC, and then come in with his idea of how his MRO operates and figure out, and how he knows also, too. He was the COO and the head scheduler, planner, and responsible for all of production and operations at Southwest for 3 years. So he's done this in industry, and these guys are living in the 99.8% mission capable rate every day to make global flights happen. So we'll tie this all together. So it's a fast-moving train, and then there might be some things that we have that we thought we were going this way, and we're going to go. It's going to be a major course correction. I don't know where this is yet, Jeff, to answer that. So we're going to work it through together, and trust me when I say, is you and Grumpy and Admiral Kelly, all the stakeholders will have a say in this. So just hang on to that till next Thursday. It's a great question, a great thought. And I've had the same thing too, because I don't know where it's going to go. And I want to get our folks together with Brian and your folks to figure that piece out.
Sure.
But
no, I think it's a perfect kind of evolution of that concept of NASC into the AOG or whatever the learning points that we get from the BCG effort. I think that dovetails perfectly into that effort. So if that's the next iteration, the next name, the next the evolution of the concept, I'm definitely in favor of it. And I know Grumpy is as well, and as Admiral Kelly, I believe, will be as well.
Yeah, and I think this too. So things like I know it was briefed out to Admiral Kelly yesterday, task orders and different things like that. They still play. Our task order that we're briefing out on, task order 4 and 5, which is increasing production throughput, component level 3 throughput by 20%. This effort is to get after that, right? So it's in direct support of what the NAE or the Air Boss and Admiral Peters have had us put out. It's reducing turnaround time at the intermediate level by 10%. This is going to be level 3, and it's also going to be level 2. I think they're still learning, admittedly so. They're still learning how we're set up. And they're learning how complicated our system is, and how it's not just about spending. I'm telling you, the commercial side of this is so much more streamlined than we are today. if you just look at how the organizations are set up. That's what we aspire to get to. And, you know, we could have, I could have never done, I'll just come out on record, I could have never have done this alone in aligning big forces like SUP and DLA on my own. It would have taken me forever to convince the Air Boss and Admiral Peters that this is the way we need to go. We've been working at that, but then everybody gets busy. It's how much do you pay attention to readiness today versus intermediate versus, hey, we're going to be sustaining this airplane for the next 30 years. So this to me is why I'm excited. It may, you know, it's opening our book, and if the baby's ugly, or you know, I have to own every bit of that as the commander. Just as, you know, for Tony, when, you know, if people come in and they're critical of how we've done business, I will tell you this: all of us have learned to try to optimize a really sub-optimized organization. That's what we've done our whole entire lives, and what we're trying to do right now is get it much better aligned, and you know, the sustainment system that we're going to leave for the new ensigns coming in today will hopefully be one that's incredibly different. It doesn't take into account, you know, engineering still has the airworthiness piece. That's a given. The 4790 and how we do things, that's written for a reason, and that's still a given here. But there's going to be some significant changes that are going to happen here. And what I will say to you, that as this rolls out, again, we're in its infancy. We're 2 weeks in, and we've already, most of it's been down and in with the FRCs, but we clearly see where organizational changes and hierarchy changes need to change. I think ASN RDA right now may get put on his dot, hey, you're not just the acquisition guy. You are sustainment. And I think you're going to see the PEOs play a much more active role because it all comes down to accountability, and putting the accountability on General Mazziello for A and Hagen for T on what you guys are responsible for 80%. What are you doing within your PMAs to get us there? And how are you setting the FRCs up for success? That's what we're after here. So if I'm trying to think the best way to do this, I could probably bring a brief out to the maintenance symposium for those of you that'll be there in December. Probably best that we do this the right way and set up a training day or training couple days like we've had before. We just didn't get in August because of a lot of turnover, a lot of busy things. We should set something, a stake in the ground. JR will look to do that in probably January, so we can get everybody here, and we'll put together a more thorough brief on, hey, where we're at that point and where everybody will play in that. But I can just assure you all, it's going to be, this is a great opportunity for us. It may be painful for us in the FRCs. I'm telling you, it could be a little bit uncomfortable, but that's okay. That's authorized. And it's also going to pressurize us in a good way, because this is going to be helpful. And I think Tony and Steve, who have been closest to this thus far, would say the same without me putting words in their mouth. I think they genuinely see it and genuinely believe it. So let me, so Jeff, great point, and we'll more to follow as we flush that out, because there is no definitive answer there yet.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Any other thoughts or questions here before we move on? I think this was everything that I wanted to talk about today. Sorry to monopolize so much of the time here. Any other things on this or for me? And I'm probably going to stay on the rest of this call just to hear the rest of the conversation. Okay. Hey, if any of you are uncomfortable or concerned about this, or really think we're going about it the wrong way, please let me know. So let's just, the last thing I'll say is let's just get the elephant out of the room. Yeah, this is a guy that DepSecDef knew, and it's coming down from an extremely high level. But I see that as opportunity. You know, I've been in plenty of meetings with the Secretary of the Navy right now, and it's nothing for him to reach out to me. He's on the phone constantly with my commercial counterpart, Brian Hirschman. And we have to be okay with that. I certainly am, and I'm going to lead the charge that way. And I'm going to back up what I tell you all to do is we're going to learn from this, and just if there's some kind of policy, some kind of procedure that's set in place that you've become comfortable with over your 20, 25, 30 years, and you see something where we're making changes here, if you have some concerns, of course, voice them. But I want you all to understand where we're going, and inevitably, this community is so important to setting the tone to the rest of the fleet and the rest of the green shirts as to where we go and explaining to folks. Like I said, their boss is still on the bridge running Naval Aviation. I'm still on the bridge running FRC. Tony, Trent, Bubba, Chris, all the FRC commanders that are on the line here today are still on the bridge running their FRCs. This is an opportunity we have to quickly implement industry best practices down and in. And that's the best way that I'll put it there. And I would be hypocritical if I say that and then in my own terms get so defensive because, I had a dream here, or my input to the vision was this 2 years ago, and now we're going this way. Hell no. If it makes sense to do it, and it'll get us there to the desired end state quicker, by God, we're going to do it. So that's what I would expect. So push back, ask the right questions. We're not going to roll over and play dead here. We're still in charge of Naval Aviation. This is fertilizer and miracle grow to help us get there quicker. To quote DepSec, that copy shamelessly, plagiarize shamelessly off of industry where they have best practices. And that's what we're going to do. JR, I think that's it. So the DoD Maintenance Symposium, 17 to 20 December in Tampa. We'll clearly be there. There's a bunch of good panels that I know myself and some of the other FRC commanders will be on. We look forward to that and seeing anybody who can make it out there. We do have some recognition coming from. I don't know what I can say, so I'll be quiet. JR, am I cleared and hot, or is that something that needs to be done out that day?
No, you're good to say that, sir.
Yeah, so field level medium category winner, really proud to announce that that's going to be FRC Mid-Atlantic. So the team there will be up on the stage getting recognized. That'll be great there. And then again, we will set up a January training date so everybody can plan accordingly after the holidays, get together, and that'll be a perfect time for. We'll set up the briefs. We'll set up. I always think of Eric and Nate down there and how much the training piece plays into what we're trying to do here. Clearly, the TICON. This is all of us in there together managing the fleet. So I'm excited about the opportunities as the depot commander, and I'm also excited about the opportunities as a community leader with all of you on the community that most impacts readiness and sustainment. So thanks for your indulgence, listening to me here today. And I'm going to stay on, JR, and just hit mute. And thanks for the opportunity.
Copy, sir. Obviously, that was great. Thanks for the valuable insight on this important Big Navy initiative. Outside of the FRCs, as the Admiral spoke to, at this juncture, everyone's always asking, hey, who's BCG? What are they about? What are they bringing to the table? So I think that what you just spoke of over the last 30 minutes, sir, kind of sets the tone and brings a level of understanding and education for those not too close to this initiative at this time, because obviously it's a big Navy and everybody's going to be impacted. So thanks for that. All right, as we continue on, if there are any other questions or any other comments with regards to anything the Admiral brought up or anything you want to say before we move on to the OCMs? ESG, go ahead.
From Tony over here at Southwest. So, Admiral, I did receive a text from Mr. Hirschman this morning. He will be on board for the Vice CNO visit tomorrow, and so I just replied with thanks. We're excited to show the Vice Chief of what we've accomplished. Over.
Yeah, copy, Tony. Thanks, and I'll call you when this is over. I want to talk about one more thing. I didn't have a chance to look up it beforehand, but thanks for that.
Yeah, thanks, Tony. And for a matter of action for me, Sam, I will send you the slides and the video for distribution to the ESG, this forum, regarding the BCG and the pilot program they have on the ground there at Southwest. All right, so Brian Hawkins, what do you got?
Good afternoon, sir. Good afternoon, ESG. First thing is the National Defense Authorization Act has put a lot of new provisions in that has turned Millington on its head, and those of us in Pax River as well. First item is constructive credit and lateral entry. This is actually one of the areas they're focusing on is the acquisition corps, but it's sitting mostly with the AEDO community right now. This allows for constructive credit up to the rank of captain for service-recognized skills and experience in which the Navy does not have. Cyber would be a good example of it. The one downside that the AEDO community is trying to work through right now is there's no extra programmed authorizations. So if they were to bring in a civilian at, say, commander or captain, that does result in a loss of promotion for someone who's coming up the ranks. That would occur at every rank that they would bring someone in. Next item is expanding continuation for lieutenants and lieutenant commanders. Navy is pursuing an authorization to retain lieutenants and lieutenant commanders with critical skill sets by amending the U.S. Code, forcing people out at 20 years of commissioned service. While now this is focused mostly on the critical skill sets, it could possibly be of some use for us, for people if they wish to stick around, if they have FOS twice, but it's not clear yet if it could be used as an inventory issue tool. The one major provision that we are going to see the results of very soon is Meritorious Reorder. This allows statutory promotion boards to reorder the selection board results. Right now, the policy is being written to have up to 15% of those selected for promotion to be meritoriously reordered. It's not required to do it. It will be up to the voting members in that selection board, and 0 picks is a valid output. Essentially, the way it'll work is once the board determines the list of selectees, they will then go into another tank and determine if and how many will be reordered. So once the picks for reorder are determined, they will be listed in a new seniority order and will promote on October 1st. That is up to 15%. Then for the months November through August, we'll continue with 3%, and then the remaining 55% will promote on 1 September. We had to come up quickly with a more stringent meritorious values slide. It's based on the standard community values. However, it's essentially the unicorn at each rank of the person who has had the perfect tours, got all the perfect quals, and then some. It's something that's going to be addressed every year in review, but it will go into effect with the captain selection board. One other note with boards is while the Nav admin has not been released yet, pictures are going to be required again in boards. So for everyone in their mentorship, if they have commanders that are going up for captain here soon, we need to get pictures back in there if they're not in there at this time. One of the other items, part of the NDAA, will be the allowance for officers to opt out of promotion board consideration without penalty. We have not really started on this with Millington or with OpNav. One big concern is if it is not stated, say, prior to promotion planning, we don't want someone to opt out of a promotion board if they're in zone and the zones have already been set. More to follow on that. The last thing I have is some forensics from the Lieutenant Commander Board that could probably work into the PAMO qualification project that's going on. We selected 19 for promotion. 9 have the PAMO pin already. 8 are currently in an eye-level billet awaiting the requisite time, and 2 that were selected have not been to an eye level as of yet. We had just over half, 10 of them were POCers, so that could explain some of the differences in the fact that people having requisite time are not having an eye-level billet. But what that does say is that, you know, according to the community values, it just says that it is desired for 04. Of course, always better if you have it, but if you don't have it, all is not lost. And with that, of the in-zone non-selects, 3 had the pin and 3 didn't, but are in the eye-level billets at this time. So it was, I'm sure, a talking point in the board, but it wasn't the sole talking point, and fit rep paper still matters. That is all I have. Standing by for any questions on any of those topics.
Yeah, Brian, Captain Rodriguez here. So good outbriefs on those topics, and in particular the last one with the 04 forensics. I think that will lend itself well to supplying some data sets for the PAMO wing charter. for Flash and Brett and TK. So make sure that they have all that information in there, because I know that they're presenting some COAs down the road on our payment wing requirements that we've got currently charted out. Okay. Anybody have any questions for Brian Hawkins before we continue on? Okay. That being said, Kyle, Captain Karstens, are you on board still?
Yeah, I am. I switched over to the cell phone. Only thing I have to add is for FY19 retirements, we do have 6 planned, and that will help in Brian Hawkins' ongoing promotion planning for the FY20 in-zone 06 list, which he's working on this week. That's all I have today, JR. Thank you.
Copy, Kyle. Thanks, and thanks for joining us. As far as the ESG executive, I will be sending out the retirement list for both the next 2 years here after we finalize the promotion planning, so everybody can see what's going on, and then we'll go from there. Okay, KB is on leave today, so there's no detailer update. So we've got a little bit of time here, 1:47. I'm trying to keep you at the hour. So what I'd like to do is at least attack the 04 Milestone Department Head project charter. So if Tony and Mike McCurdy can give and Frank Bennett can give a quick little, where we're at, what we're doing, what do they recommend, and then continue on. Over to you.
JR, JR, save me 2 minutes at the end if you would, please.
Copy, sir. Will do. So over to Tony and Mike McCurdy.
Yes, sir. This is Mike McCurdy. I'm going to kick off the brief. Good afternoon, Admiral and Captains. Team effort on the brief. Of course, I do this short straw to be the lead talker, but certainly if you have any questions, myself, Frank Bennett, the brains behind the brief, or any of the rest of the team can help provide the answers. And similarly with action items, should those arise, Frank will take those as well. The purpose of this brief is to discuss the DH Screen initiative and seek an ESG and Admiral decision if the community wants to move forward with having a department head screen similar to the URLs to decide which officers will go to our 04 milestone tours. And this kind of stemmed from the 05 board. Tony and I were there, and we got the question effectively, if not quote unquote, how do you pick the officers who get to go to the different 04 type C tours? And we explained, of course, and I think we may have said this at the last meeting, it has to do with, we want the most qualified officers to go to those jobs with the increasing levels of authority, responsibility, and accountability, but that we acknowledge, because they asked, is there a board? No, there's not a board, but we explained that we had a process. And I think a stronger answer to that would have been better received, but although I do think we got through it okay. And so the discussion items for the brief include which 04 billets should be considered for the department head screen, what is the path for those that do and those that don't screen, as you can see there on the bullets, as well as those sub-bullets. We need to kind of figure out, maybe or maybe not, marrying up with the URL community, when folks get their first look, how many looks they get, the tour length, and emphasize too that kind of like today, we don't want officers who don't screen for this board to not be considered for 05, but acknowledging that this is an en route kind of hurdle and maybe an enabler or a facilitator, and our stats and our forensics over the years show that it is. And then what's the potential impact for retention? You see there that we have fewer AMDO lieutenant commanders than we have billets, and would this exacerbate that maybe if folks are given a stamp earlier on in their 04 time frame that, hey, you're not going to get to go do one of the traditionally more competitive jobs. So anybody else from the team have anything else on the intro, Frank or Tony?
I'm good, Mike. Nice work.
Mike, I'm good.
Thanks. So on slide 3, the milestone tour billets, there's 78, that we say now are viable jobs for folks to go to. for their 04C tours, and then reshaping this, we think we're looking at 21, and the distribution is what you see there below with, you know, the IM1s, the CVNs, CAG jobs, the 2 overseas AIMDs, the 4 FRC MMCO positions that are listed, and then although we've got no billets, we I think would still be, as Kevin has done and some of the other detailers before him, filling those jobs for LDO billets with different folks. And if we did go to a new system, maybe that's picking one of the qualified insufficient opportunity officers that would have been identified at a DH screen board if we go that way. Backing up to the FRC MMCO billet, there was some discussion over which ones of those that we which FRC MMCO billets were the ones. We went with the ones that had, check me on this, Tony and Frank, I think those are the ones that have AMBIL 06 COs and not the other ones. I think kind of is where we drew that line. Moving on to the next slide, slide 4, community values.
Mike, one question. Why were the 54 squadron folks dropped from what's currently in to what is proposed for the future? Any discussion there?
So there was plenty, Chris, and I think it's this. It's not that 04s won't get to go to squadrons. We just won't. The proposal is that we will not, at the board, DH screen board, pick the officers for those billets. So that might be a job that an 04 who does not come out on top at the DH screen will get to go to.
Copy that.
Okay.
If I can, Mike, the also is the math right? Is 21 enough as we keep going through to push folks be competitive so we have a good group of people to choose for or compete for 05? So if it doesn't work out with the math, then we may need to look at what squadrons, and could that be something that we lever as, can those 04s in their milestone tours have the opportunity to actually be the maintenance officers? But that would take some buy-in, but those would certainly make them a little more competitive. My comments on that. Thanks.
Yeah, so hey, this is Trent. So that's kind of where my first question becomes, is if you do the math on it, that means you're probably only going to have 5 to 6 people per year group that have a department head screen stamp on their record. And is that enough to fill your commander billet quotas? So I think there is going to have to be a little bit of math to look at that, because I don't think that that's going to give you enough.
Hey, this is Dave Vondrak. I've got another question. When you were doing the math, we assess quite a few POCers each year, and some of them are rather senior, and just by time alone, they don't necessarily have the opportunity. Has that research been done to see if they're going to be already at a bad starting point for a department head screen type situation?
Hey, Dave, this is Frank. Yeah, we looked at the POCers, and you know, Brian, correct me if I'm wrong, and I know KB had some data, as most of our POCers are already coming in challenged, to include, I think we have one POCer who made lieutenant commander, doesn't have an eye-level tour, and is looking for their milestone tour already. So it goes into the full math. Is the 21 enough to give us the inventory moving forward? But the realization also is those 21 does not preclude someone from making commander, but it does highlight those who are the front runners in the community.
Absolutely, I don't disagree. I just think that we're assessing the POCers, and they may be at a disadvantage to even come into the community, knowing that they may or may not make, more likely may not make the department head screen.
Yeah, and I
think
go
into their decision.
Yeah, Frank, what I'd say to that too is I think that weighs in on what you're going to have on that 5th slide that talks to the pros and cons and retention. Is you're going to have a certain amount of folks that if I don't get a department head screen stamp, and I know I'm not going to get it, why would I even stay for that tour? So I do think that the overall retention will become worse instead of either staying steady or getting better. And that's one of our biggest problems in the 04 rank. So anyway, not to hold up the brief, but I think that your comment does kind of go straight to the point on the stuff on slide 5. Over.
So thanks for all the comments on math, and I do agree. We need to sharpen our pencils on that and study a little better on the ramifications or what might those outcomes be. Just related, I think our POCers join the community, and I think people are well enough mentored as they're considering, joining the community. Is you're going to be at a disadvantage if you come late, but that doesn't mean that we can't use you and that it can't be good for you as an officer and an individual as well. But we will try to relook at that. On the slide 4, the community values, we're not revamping the things that we value: proven at sea performance, O&I, the progression of complexity in the jobs, and you can see it mostly looks like what we're looking at for the 04s there in terms of community values. To talk a little bit about the board process, I think, and this happened on then Commander Schneider's watch as detailer, and I think it did well for the community, is synchronizing or meshing up as well as possible with the URL process. So we're trying to, with KV mostly, steal the notes from what they do there. As this is the DH screens, like the ACSB screens, are approved by the Air Boss. One of the things I think we'll get into a little bit later is, like our ACSB, but the URL's DH screens, those officers, not just the screen, but also the slate is approved by the Air Boss. That's one area where we're looking at not deviating, but instead sending a screen list to the Air Boss of, hey, for these 21 jobs this year, our number of picks was maybe 11. We've got this many queues. Air Boss, here's that list. Have that screen be approved, but continue to give the detailer and the community the latitude to detail those identified through the DH screen as the ones to go to those jobs. Then at that point, maybe it's a CAGMO job, maybe it's an IM1, but not tie hands necessarily of the detailer, to try to keep that flexibility there. Zone size is another TBD sort of piece, trying to determine exactly how many to pick. Maybe, roughly it's half of the number of billets, given that they are 2-year tours. And then how many QIOs will we need to pick should those jobs, or should those individuals not take those jobs, or should maybe the LDO detailer offer up an IM1 or L-boat opportunity. And as I said, with the slating process, looking at the screen to be approved, but the slating being done within the detailing and community processes.
Hey, Mike, TK here. Just quick question. You know how we do the CAGMO process with the vetting out? Would that go away, or are we still going to have a couple of candidates to nominate to the DCAG to go up to CAG for potential consideration?
Thanks, Tony. Good question. We talked about that. I think the process would be quite similar, but the detailers' candidates for to be nominees to the deputy CAG and CAG, those candidates list, that would come from folks who have gotten through the board successfully. So, of the people with good resumes, who are the people with good O-level resumes, time at sea as an MMCO on a carrier, or those things that make potential CAGMOs. But I think that process would not change. It would just change, the pool that the detailer draws his nominees from. Over.
Roger. And as you're aware, sometimes you fall into the trap where you nominate 3 people, CAG picks 1, and you've kind of already worked your IM1 folks and other 04C tours. And what do you do with the CAGMO candidates? Do you bump somebody out from a carrier or not? Just not asking the question, just food for thought.
Well, you're right, Tony. This selection board DH screen would not solve that problem. I don't think, though, that it would exacerbate or exacerbate it, make it worse. The detailer would continue to have to sort of balance that. How many noms does this hopeful CAGMO get put in for before the detailer and he or she kind of cut bait and say, no, you know what, it's not going to be a CAGMO for you, and we can't let these other DH screen opportunities slip away before you're done. And I think I've passed my time. JR, am I over already?
Oh, you've got the floor. So no, we're good. We've extended the forum to hour and a half, 2 hours as far as bridging is concerned. So keep going. Okay. You're almost at juncture. You're good. Keep going.
Okay. I thought it was 1400, so glad I've got some time.
We've learned a lesson from before.
Yeah, copy. Hey, any additional questions or comments on slide 4? Okay. So onto that pros and cons slide there. I think this gives us, as well as the URL and other line officers that are sitting promotion boards, it lends some credence to our processes, and it helps ensure that the best and fully qualified officers are going to the most complex of our 04 C-Tour opportunities. It clarifies and defines our milestone tour for our promotion board. Again, we're not eliminating promotion opportunity for those who don't screen, but it sort of sets the stage for that. And I think of the URLs, at the 05 level, who some of them get screened to be squadron, operational squadron command, and some of them still get to go to sea, but maybe they're CDCO or maybe they're safety officer, air ops, or strike ops, and they can still promote. But it sets the sort of the hierarchy more clearly. And as I mentioned before, the detailer will be cutting the orders, based on community processes of the folks who would screen. So those are what we identified as some of the pros there, and then the cons on top of the one that Trent helped point out with, hey, are we doing the math? Are we exacerbating our retention problem too much? It does reduce flexibility in the detailing pool. If you're running out of selectees and QIOs, maybe if we don't do the math right on how many folks we need to pick in that command plan, so to speak, we could get pinched there. And as well, second bullet there, the negative impact to retention for those who are not selected.
Hey, Mike, I'd like to throw out one more possible negative, which is currently we tell folks when they go to that 04 squadron tour, hey, if you go do the extra stuff and you become, the maintenance guy, you've got a shot for making 05. If the 04 squadron tours aren't in that mix for department head screening, are we telling the folks inadvertently that it really doesn't make any difference what you do when you go there, so just go have fun and don't worry about that squadron tour because you're not going anywhere anyway? I'm not saying it is. I'm wondering, is that an unintended consequence where now they know not only like it has been where the odds aren't with you, now you're not even going to have the screen to help beat the odds?
Pausing a little bit on responding to that. I think that's a problem we still have today, and I think even in today's rules and structure, a lot of it is in messaging, and a lot of it is in being able to show on occasions, point out the officers and the circumstances where folks did do squadron tours and did well. Maybe they were the MO and did promote. I
agree. I'm not disagreeing. I'm just saying that the URLs put a lot of faith and confidence in that stamp that's on the record. And it's an easy way for them to evaluate the record in about 30 seconds without listening to all the yammering that's going on. If there's no stamp there, then, that's going to mean a lot to them. And when we're fighting the battle at the ACSB, where you get one vote out of 19, and they're not listening all of a sudden because there's no stamp, the dude could have done a lot in that extra tour, and they may not be paying attention because there's no screen stamp on his record. And then on the flip side, for the individual, if I know I'm not going to have that screen stamp and I know nobody's going to be listening, and you're telling me I'm pretty much not in the top tier, how much effort am I going to spend in that 04 Sea Tour? You got two examples. You got folks that are prior enlisted with 20 years that might have said, okay, I'll go ahead and do it to stay in the area, but this is going to be my 3 and gone. Or you've got the non-prior enlisted guy that's saying, why would I waste 3 more years in a job when I need to go find something permanent? I'm like I say, I'm just throwing out there may be another unintended consequence, which is we may not be adding to someone's motivation to perform well in that 04 Sea Tour that's not a screen job.
So, I mean, the questions are supposed to come to me and not back to you, but I guess this would be for anybody. How then would we screen them or differentiate if everybody's going to screen, if more people are going to screen, if the squadron billets are in the mix for screening, then how does an officer, then we still have another cut to do as far as who would get maybe the pinnacle of those screen jobs.
Well, I mean, the way we do it now is we say if they've had one of those jobs, it's their 04 milestone, and it's up to us at the board to talk about what's the scope and size of work of the job, be it CAGMO, be it IM1, be it a squadron AMO. If you haven't done one of the, or L-boat, and if you haven't done one of those, then you don't have the milestone. I think this is no different. It's just, you know, it's kind of like the point where we started is why would we take the squadron AMO or the squadron 04 jobs out of the mix? That's the only question. And if the math works and it's doable for the number of people you need to be 05s, and we don't value those squadron AMO tours enough to put them in the mix, then that's the answer. But I'm just saying that there's going to be some consequences with that when we're already struggling to keep people in at 04.
So, real quick, one key point to all this is if we are, in fact, if we get to roll down 04 billets to build up our in strength, which we've been trying to do for years, that would limit the number of 04 jobs. And then after we do the math, if some of those 04 jobs would then be selected as department head screens. But while we're having this conversation, I'm more interested to hear if we could pull any data on how many people that went to a squadron as an AMO, then screened for 05, and then screened for ACSB. How many of those have we had? I don't know how far back we want to go, but that would help us a little bit to look at the statistics to show how successful individuals were with that track. Can we pull that data?
I can pull that, sir.
So Trent's point, you know, when I first read this is Nate, I thought we're stealing hope, and we're kind of in a URL world. If I was explaining to a squadron CO that we don't screen his 04s with the rest of the 04s, it's not worthy of a screen. I think we have a hard enough time anyway filling our 04 squadron billets, and sitting detailer would probably be able to shed some light on vacancies. But that was always a front office priority, was to fill the squadrons and have the right mix of LDOs and 1520s pay grade wise. But with that, I'll just kind of say, have you looked real close at where our vacancies are today? And again, how the second order effect with URLs is how we downplay our 04 sea duty billets and squadrons.
Yeah, so Nate, that's a perfect lead-in, because the next thing I would say is that we're sitting here talking about, and we heard the Admiral talk about where we're going with aviation maintenance and the importance of what's done at the squadron. And so if we screen this and we don't include it, how important are we saying those 04 jobs are in the squadron? I think that's the wrong signal. The reason that the department head screen works for the URLs is because of volume. There's a ton of squadrons, and they have at least 5, if not 6, 04 billets in there, and those are ranked and pecked out in order. Whether they put it in writing or not, they are. But they're all screened jobs. So they have a higher volume to pick from and a higher volume to keep people interested in being lieutenant commanders. Our numbers are terribly small, and every person counts. So the more you make the knot hole tighter, or the more you make the funnel smaller, the less folks we're going to have that want to stay around for 05 and 06. And I think that's just the reality of it. So we just got to be careful how we do that.
And also, the less excited the squadron CEOs are going to be to get a non-select or non-department head screen guy to come in to be a leader of the maintenance department.
Yep, my point.
Hey, Brian, TK here. Do we have enough 04s to fill all of our 04 billets in the squadrons?
No, sir. Right now, typically what we're doing is filling them with 03s where we can. There are some squadrons which, when they have 2 15-20 billets and an LDO and a warrant, or 2 15-20 and 2 LDOs, we're sending 1. We don't have the inventory right now. We're just on 04 OPA, we're at 24. 24 holes right now.
So is the same situation when I was there, when Vince was there, and we still have the same problem now?
Yes,
so
sir.
If we started this problem, we couldn't fit. We started this process. We couldn't fill them with 04s anyway.
Correct.
Okay. Thanks. And just to add on to that, when I look at the slide 5 here, we do select the best of fully qualified officers. As a detailer, the process normally is you have your list of candidates for 04C tours. You talk to your senior 06s or selected senior 06s, tell them what your plan is, and get a concurrence. And sometimes you may have to go to the admiral if there's a hard point. Milestone tours are clearly defined already on the slide that we present after the preset, and a detailer can still cut orders based on selections or conversations within the community. Are we having problems with any of those top 3 on slide 5 currently?
So for the very top bullet there, selecting the most fully qualified officers, I think potentially the detailer by himself, or the community, kind of as we sort it now, and then a sanctioned DH board. I think they would come up with basically the same answers, in terms of who would go to those key kind of jobs. I think, based on that 05 board experience, a DH board would lend credence to the process and make it easier to pick, if you will, the people who did those jobs and did well enough in them. So I don't think it's a problem. I think we're putting the best people into those jobs already, in my opinion. I think this would just kind of sanction it from a bigger Navy perspective. That's my only response to that, Tony. I don't know if Tony Jarmillio or Frank, you got anything to add?
And I appreciate it, Mike, and I'm not throwing darts here. I'm just thinking this through based on all the comments here. Inventory is a problem. Are we sending the wrong message? And do we have a problem with the process? As a former detailer, most of my calls about issues were people in the squadrons. They wanted more people with experience in the squadron. We do the orbs. We send them out, we work with placement. We get concurrence from the CVN XOs before we send somebody out there. We talk to internally before we send somebody to the FRCs. And with the squadron, we work with placement. And normally we do send that ensign or JG to fill out 04C tour. So trying to help here the best way possible. I just don't want to have to be a detriment to the community.
Definitely appreciate the questions and the discussion. We don't want to go to a new situation that's worse or just bad in different ways if the current system is not meeting what we need.
We'd have to plan. This is Nate again. We'd have to plan. So this is kind of OCM world. We'd have to plan for a higher attrition rate of 04s, which means our ensign end strength would have to be improved, and that wouldn't take effect until you have a couple of years of trending to the new attrition rate. So to me, are we making the problem worse? Are our ensign year groups that healthy? Are we recruiting 15, 20 ensigns, and do we have the end strength to be able to do what we're talking about?
Yes, sir. This is Brian. Right now, our OPA is unsustainable with that anyway. We take in very few ensigns right now, as it is, and that's because our pyramid tends to be screwed up. We have essentially just as many lieutenant commander authorizations as lieutenant. So that's again a problem that we have, that we under promote to lieutenant commander for flow point issues. We're consistently promoting less. We need to promote 20 more than we usually do every year just to make up our authorizations at lieutenant commander. So it would take a shift in that. It would take a shift in OPA, which could be for some of the roll down initiatives that have been tried over the years. I was just pulling some numbers right now. As far as lieutenant commanders go, we have 23 of them that are currently in sea duty squadrons.
Hey, Brian, Captain Rodriguez here. So there's been a lot of good discussion on this, and obviously, there's good points being vetted by a lot of the captainship on here. Another one that I'd like to put forward, I was just talking to Captain Jones about, is, so what if we ran an excursion taking all lieutenant commanders out of the squadrons and just keeping the 04s in the FRSs? And what does that do to our numbers? Again, we don't need to do the sausage making here. It's something to kind of tinker about, because I'm seeing that everybody is a lot on the pro, or there's some on the cons, and there are going to be some impacts. The question is the optic of the community in front of the other communities, and how comfortable are we as captains briefing these records if it's not already a stated directive or a stated way of how we do business. Because when we have to educate in front of boards, that puts us at a disadvantage. And I think that all of us here, Trent and I, we've gone to several boards and we've encountered this issue, but it works on both ways. It all depends on who's there, the personality of the board membership, the personality of the board member, how vocal they are, how engaging they are, how willing they are to promote and to be stern and firm about our community values. But again, the only way that we can always back that up with a person who's very assertive against someone who is somewhat restrained is the fact that we have a consistent guidance out there that kind of speaks to itself. And I think that's where this is going. So there's a lot of very good points. So for sake of time, because I think that we're driving down and I'm seeing people just beep off here, a lot of good discussion. And I would say if you go to slide 6, Mike, not to hijack the brief, but the next steps piece, I think that you guys talk about that. So I guess I would ask the ESG, in particular the executive membership, to kind of look at that. Are there any other things? Trent brought up a great point there, and I saw Nate's point too. And TK is bringing up another counterpoint, which is good too. So do we need to add it to some of these next steps and continue on? This is a great update to what we've been doing. So great work from the three on this charter. But now we've got a lot more questions, and we probably need to run a couple more excursions. And I'll leave it there. Comments, thoughts, over.
This is Frank. If anyone wants to push me their comments, I'll collect them and update the brief and work with KB and Brian to get some more data points, so we can run some drills and readdress the questions and concerns.
Is that fair, Trent? TK, Nate, you guys have been very, you've got some questions here and some thoughts here. So,
hey, Frank, I'll give you a call. It's going to be too much for me to type.
Yeah. Is that fair, Trent? Nate?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think one thing that would make it interesting is if we could do the billet roll downs so that the OPA was realigned, which we've been trying to do for at least 15 years.
Precisely. Exactly.
If that was allowed to happen, this would be an interesting thing to look at, because I think that does reshape things to the point where now you can have a discussion about what's the flow and the numbers required to go from one rank to the next.
Yeah.
So that would be an interesting one to start with and see what the viability of that would be with CNAF, because it's always been an instant no.
Yeah, but to your point, I mean, it's been out there for 15 years, but I think that we're in a ripe environment for change. And with these, with the stand-up of NAMCs and the poaching of billets and whatever, a lot of people are making things happen. So I think this is the time for us to kind of maybe try this again with a more kind of a structured approach like we have here that the guys have put forth, and run some good excursions, Brian and KB, and make sure the numbers back up what we're seeing, and then propose it. Over.
No, I don't disagree with you. The only counter I would say to that is that we're saying from a naval aviation standpoint, we want better maintenance and better management at the O level. I'm not sure that turning around and saying we want to take the 04 billets out is going to be productive with that argument.
No, good point. It's one that we have to craft. And again, the compromise has to be, again, either you put up the resources, right, big Navy, so we can fill that. If not, we have to take some measures just like everybody else is. But that's a great point. Yep.
Okay. If I may, Trent, to your point with I mentioned this earlier, the roll down. I would think the community would rather have, and it's ripe for the picking, is bringing in more ensigns so that these ensigns get that training earlier on, couple them up, and by the time they're 04, they've got good 9 years of maintenance experience. Because what we're forced to do now, and in some cases, we're forced to take on POCers or other people through the lateral transfers, and then the squadron gets an individual that may be a lieutenant, maybe higher, who doesn't even have the resident experience. So it's a selling point is we have to grow the community. They have to start somewhere. We team them up with good, strong maintenance people, master chiefs, LDOs, warrant officers, and then they have to get the training somewhere. And at that O level, I think that makes us a stronger community as they go through the 9 years.
No, I agree 100%. I think in light of the brief, though, we're talking about saying that now that 04 job's not that important. So, it's a counter. We're kind of talking at both ends of our mouth here on what's the value of the 04 tour. If the value is we're taking it away because it doesn't need to be part of the department head screen, then I would argue what difference does it make if we grow them to be better going into the 04 squadron tour?
Okay. All good points and noted. Yeah. All right. So, Mike, wrapping it up. So, all good points here. So let's, Sam, I hope you've been capturing most of the dialogue here.
Yes, sir.
And I want to be able to maybe restructure the next steps, kind of pookerize those, because obviously we don't want to seek approval from Air Boss until that's towards the bottom, until we've vetted out and kind of filtered out all these discussion points that are being proposed. So, all right. Mike,
Mike, agree. All of the next steps, the 2, 3, and 4, all hinge on number 1, and I think the big thing I, heard with all the constructive comments was, we need to do some more math and analytics on some of the ramifications here. So we're happy to reengage. Over. Thanks.
Copy. Well, great. Hey, so putting a bow on this one. So Mike and Tony and Frank, a lot of good work here. With I'm sure a lot of folks giving a lot of input to this. Again, this is a progress brief, so it's not like, please take it as that. It's all constructive feedback, and we all have our our optics and our views on stuff, and that's what this forum is all about, is like, how do we wrap that up as a community and put it together? So a lot of good points. Okay, so wrapping that up there, and before I turn it over to the Admiral, some points here. For project charters, we're going to move the PAMO wing requirements piece out towards probably November. I'll talk to Flash. There's an A2M2 course update that CNAT, in this case Eric or Nate, are part of through their schoolhouse piece, and I'm not so sure if they've been directly tied to that, but I know that there's been some discussion with Commander Bishop and some of the other folks in course curriculum, and the OCM is working that. So maybe we can get a progress report on that and where we're going on at the November session. That would be awesome. Some other notables, again, a shameless plug for Eric Simon and Nate Schneider's upcoming change of command is on the 15th of November. Eric will be transitioning out to the private sector after 38, 39 years, so we hope to be down there in earnest to support. The Admiral is a speaker there. So that would be a great event to see you all off and see Nate and Brian Hepstel take command. Congratulations goes out to Captain Frank Bennett, OPNAV N98. Frank, great job that you've done there for a couple of years at OPNAV, and now you've taken on JZ's seat there and doing a great job in resourcing dollars in those enabler accounts. So we appreciate it, and we look forward to the future relationships with you in that seat as an 06. So thanks for that. And Sam, I captured, I think, before I turn it over to the rest of the ESG and then the Admiral, 3 action items. So the OCM one for AMO to command at ACSB, some more data mining from Captain Jarmillio. We'll chase down the 06 training probably in January sometime. We got to deconflict the 06 board and some other stuff that's going on there. We'll look at that. And then the other action item is to send the BCG slide with the FRC Southwest video to the membership in totality here. We'll do that hopefully by today. So that is that. Open to the executive committee chairs. Trent, what do you got out there? You got anything?
Nope, I'm good, man.
Tom Dahl?
Negative for me.
Mike McCurdy?
Good for me, Hartford. Thanks.
Great. Frank?
We're good up here in OPNAV.
Okay, awesome. So that being said, I'm going to turn it over to the Admiral. And I want to thank any of the other members out there. I'm sorry. Any of the other members out there want to say anything? Save bullets, save rounds. Okay. Admiral, over to you, sir.
Hey, thanks, Sarah. Hey, really good discussion to the team there. Eric, are you still on? Eric Simon?
Yes, sir. I'm here.
Okay. So it dawned on me, and JR made mention of it. I wanted to go back to that. Is in the event that there's not another ESG or that I can't make it, I just wanted to say a couple words while we had this group together on my thoughts on Eric. So on the 15th, as JR said, CNAT change of command. Eric turned over after a great tour, XOCO tour, and then heading into retirement. I just wanted to say, Eric, to you in front of this group, what a pleasure and privilege it's been to know you for so many years and serve alongside you. When I think about Eric Simon, I think about, we talked a lot today about sustainment and maintenance and where we've been and where we're going. And, I just think back to somebody like you who worked your way up through the ranks, Chief Petty Officer, tremendous success there, commissioned, and then we're going to talk about this obviously more on the 15th, but then work your way all the way up to the level that you're at today. I've especially enjoyed our time together. You talk about today 04C tours, CAGMO, AMDO, FRC production officer, selecting 4 captain, 06 command, just an incredibly, just what an incredible career. And I was, just to watch you work and be a teammate of yours when you were out at Southwest, most especially. Really enjoyed the time. I mean, I really enjoyed the time working next to you here at ComFRC headquarters when you were Chief of Staff. And we as a collective group, we're going to miss your leadership. We're going to miss your expertise. And we'll talk more again on the 15th. But I just want to say this, Scott, the youth, Mara, and the kids, just thanks for so many years, almost just shy of 4 decades of tremendous service. I'm personally going to miss you, and I'll just be bold enough to speak on behalf of all of us. We'll all miss you, and your contributions to naval aviation maintenance, and more specifically, this community will be lasting. And just thanks, and anything you need in the future, consider it done. So just thanks, and that's all I wanted to say. Let's wrap up, and just thanks to the entire team. Great discussion here. Thank you for leading this community. Thank you for charting the course as we head into the future. Critically important work that you're all doing, we're all doing, and that's basically on the maintenance side of the house and sustainment, and then most especially to run the best community in the Navy today. So that's all I have. Thanks, everybody. Have a great weekend, and I look forward to seeing you all around the deck plates soon, and hopefully down to Pensacola. Look forward to seeing you there. Thanks.
Thanks, Admiral. Sir, copy. Eric, do you have any last words? Sorry for protocol breaks.
No, I should be on the next call, provided we have one. If not, it's been an honor and a privilege serving with all of you. It's been a great ride, and life is good.
Perfect, and good. We'll have you in the next call, and we'll talk about it. Awesome. Great. All right, well, everybody have a great weekend. Thanks for all the great dialogue and exchange. AMDOS forever. Out.